everybody, and welcome to week 3 of MDS 301. So this week we're going to have hopefully a fairly short video going over cover letters and statements of purpose. So some of you are going to be doing one of these for your assignment this week, but most of you will be writing something like this at some point. So hopefully this will be useful information regardless of which path you're on for this class. So we're going to start with cover letters. So a lot of you have probably written cover letters before, but a lot of you probably also haven't been super happy with them because they're not an easy thing to write, right? So the purpose is to provide a narrative that complements your resume. So we have our resumes already. We have all of this really bare bones kind of specific information about what we've done in these different jobs or volunteers or clubs or class experiences. And so now the cover letter lets you choose a couple of those. So the resume is a full page of lots of really great bullet points, hopefully. And so in the cover letter, you choose maybe 2 or 3 of those bullet points and bring them more to life. And so it gives you a place to expand upon some of those experiences, really selecting the ones that correspond most directly with the job that you're applying for. And so through this, you start to be able to show your personality, the things that you look for in a position, the things that you can bring to a position, and really start to convince the reader why you're right for this job that you're going for. So you're highlighting your professional qualifications, the experiences that you have. You don't just retell us everything that's on the resume, right? Like I said, you just choose a couple things to really be able to highlight, and then you start to show the connections between those experiences. So we'll talk about the structure more formally in a little bit, but you might have 2 or 3 body paragraphs, and so you want to have some kind of connective thread between the 3 to show how your different experiences fit together. So with your BIS and your RBA degrees, you're going to have lots of class experience from all over the place. This is a way where you can kind of start to show that narrative thread that you're going to be building over the course of this course to really say, okay, this is what my degree means to me, and these are the skills and the potential that I'm bringing out of it here. And so you're starting to really bring it to life as a story. Selling yourself. So you're telling them why you specifically and why do you connect with them really well. So you're also bringing in some of, the company's goals or their mission, or if you're looking for like joining a university, maybe, what is it that university, what gap are they seeking to fill, and how does that connect with your own desires, your own values, priorities, all of those sorts of things. And so with this, you really are shaping the conversation by what you're choosing to talk about in the cover letter. So everything's there in the resume. You're pulling out the most important. And so this is also signifying to the reader, okay, this is what this person values. So it is important what examples you use in those body paragraphs when you're really starting to try to bring yourself to life a little bit. And so part of this is why every cover letter is going to be different, right? You don't get to just write one good cover letter and then use that for every job. It has to be tailored to each specific job that you apply for. And then it's also going to evolve over time. So if you have one at the end of this semester you're happy with, it might be great for this semester. Next year you might have to rewrite it completely just because your priorities change, the types of positions you're going for change, also your experience changes. And so this has to be a living document that evolves with you. So to kind of start out the format, I think you guys are probably all really familiar with the business letter format, so I'm not going to go over this too much, but it is important. So last week we talked a little bit about how the format of the resume kind of shapes how it's received by somebody. It's the same for the cover letter. If you have lots of color, or if you have like some kind of graphics or a banner or something like that, it's probably going to end up being a little bit distracting for most of the people who are going to be reading the cover letters at this point. And it's not going to be as easily analyzable by the AI or the machine that's actually probably going to be doing the first read of this. So again, you have to think about technology, and if you've ever tried to like format, or you've taken a PDF and you tried to convert it to a Word online, any of those ways that you can do that, and you see like the formatting all gets kind of jumbled up, that's the sort of thing that would happen if you tried to do something that was a little bit too creative. So sticking with the traditional business format, your name, the date, their name, their address, and the greeting, and then all of the paragraphs. And so if you don't have a specific human's name to write the letter to, you can say, "Dear Hiring Committee," or you could look for somebody in HR if there's somebody there. If it's a small department and you know who the head of the department is, you could put their name in. But if you can't find a real actual name, "Dear Hiring Committee" is fine. So that does still work. So now for the actual important part, the actual body of the paragraphs here. So You're going to start out by just stating really clearly, I'm writing to apply for a blank position at blank organization, and I found it on blank website. This is just to give all of the context. This is something in a cover letter that really hasn't evolved, since cover letters started being used. And it also potentially could be a place where you could start to put in a networking connection. So if you meet somebody at a job fair and they tell you about a position and then you decide to apply for it, you could mention that in this paragraph here. That starts to kind of build that connection. So they see, oh yeah, somebody's already seen this person. They have a little bit of credibility already. And so that kind of changes the mindset when they're reading the rest of the letter, because they know, okay, you've already done that. If you haven't, that's fine. Just talk about the position you're applying for and where you found it. And then you're going to go into your academic introduction. So talking about the degree that you're doing now, if you're positioning yourself as a newly graduating student, the university, again, that's another place you might be able to make networking connections there. If it's a WVU alum, you have that there. If you mention it, that's going to, make somebody read this more favorably. If you have a lot of professional experience, you can say, I have blank many years of blank kind of work, and you can mention that here. So this second paragraph is really just giving the foundation for who you are for them to read the rest of it. So once they know kind of who you are, background specifics, then you go into the first real body paragraph, and that's going to be the first example of you talking about a specific position that you've had, what you did within it, the responsibilities that you had, the outcomes, so like what did you actually accomplish with it, and then you starting to make that connection back to the job description. And so using keywords that they find or they leave in the job description for you, so you're having the same kind of language in there. This is good for them to know that you've actually done the research to read the job description and you've understood what's being asked of this potential employee, but also it's good for if a computer's reading it and they're just checking for keywords, you're going to get those in there, but in the context of you doing the work. So it's kind of doing double duty for you and telling them what you can do as a potential employee, but also highlighting those kind of key things that the machine's going to look for. And so in this paragraph, if you've ever heard of a concept called STAR or CAR, this is a good place to use it. So STAR is situation, task, action, and result. So situation, a sentence to describe what I was doing. Task or situation is the context of where I was doing it. The task is what I was doing. The action is how I did it. And the result is what was the end product. So were you successful? Did you get this many new clients? Did you talk to that many people? Did you organize a new kind of filing system in the office? Something to show, okay, I did this, I had this responsibility, and then I was successful in this way. So that's the sort of thing that you want to be talking about here. So 2 paragraphs that kind of go into that, also connecting to what they're asking for in the description. And then you'll have your closing. This will kind of be the traditional thing too. Just, I hope you can see from the above that I have this skill and experience that will be relevant to this position. I hope to speak with you more about this. That's really all you need. So your opening and your conclusion will pretty much stay the same, just kind of fill in the blanks. Your body paragraphs are going to be different for each letter that you write to an extent. And so there's a couple examples here. So this first one, take a second and look at it. Hopefully you're seeing some potential issues with this right now. So like with the resumes, there's a decent amount of white space here. White space makes the reader think you didn't have something to say. So this whole left-hand column, it gives the idea that Emma didn't have anything else worth writing about, so she left all that blank space. So using the columns like that, not a great idea. You might think it's visually appealing, but for this purpose, that's not really your goal. So I would redo that, probably take out the Twitter, definitely, maybe the LinkedIn as well, because that also starts to distract from the letter a little bit. Your LinkedIn, you can definitely include on your resume, unless you're going into some kind of communications field. Twitter, I would probably just leave off altogether. And then this one, like she's using those bullet points in the body paragraph, that can work. If you have a lot of experience, that could be an option to really highlight the key things or the key deliverables that you've done, the key things that you've achieved. I wouldn't aim for that though. Paragraphs are better for the cover letter, bullet points are better for the resume. And then this one also has the PS. Don't use a PS. That's not very professional. It's a little bit too colloquial for what she's trying to do here. So you'd want it to be a little bit more formal. So I have another example here, and the format you can see is much more traditional, so it kind of fits into that more formal category well. At the top there is a little bit of fun with the color and the layout there, that's okay. You can do that if it fits. If not, you don't need it, and it does kind of stand out a little bit. So you can, again, think about the organization. If standing out is good or not, maybe you can go this route. If you know that they're more traditional, maybe just keep it with the really traditional business letter style. And so hopefully you can pause this, read through this example. This is a stronger example. One other thing to note, if you look toward the bottom, they have the closing with the sincerely, their signature and their name. If you have a copy of your signature on, like you can input in as a photo into a doc, that's great. Or you could even, save your letter as a PDF and then sign it electronically with your trackpad. That's wonderful. If you don't have that, or you can't figure out how to do that, you can just put in your name again with like more of a script font and then type it back in the same font as the rest of your letter below. But you do want to have some kind of like traditional signature in there. So hopefully that's clear. There's examples of cover letters that you'll be able to find on eCampus. You can refer there. Also, just look for cover letter examples for like the field you want to go into and see. Some of it is your personal style, right? Your personal communication style. Part of what the cover letter does is actually give the reader an example of how you write. So you aren't having to fit into too strict of a format, but these are kind of the general norms that are good to follow. So now we're gonna move on to the statement of purpose. And so this is traditionally when you're applying for a degree, so grad school. If some of you might end up doing like professional certificates in your field, you might have to do a statement of purpose for that as well. And so, the purpose of the statement of purpose is to tell kind of what your goals are, why you want to be pursuing this path. It shows your connection to the grad program. It gives them insight into whether you actually know what the grad program is and what you'd be doing in it. It shows them about your writing abilities. So it's a page where you have to be pretty succinct, but you also have to write well and tell a good story. So they're going to be able to see your abilities there. A lot of times the statement of purpose just completely replaces an interview. Before most grad programs, there would have been an interview portion. That usually is not the case anymore. So you're having to really tell them who you are completely just in this page. And this can be a lot of the space where you get to stand out. A lot of grades now, they're pretty similar across the board. If you're looking at a program that still requires standardized tests, a lot of times, you're all going to be kind of at the same area. And so this statement of purpose might be the thing, like the one thing that can make you stand out as a unique person when you're applying. So it is really a great opportunity to do that. You just have to use it well. So that's why we do this in this class. And so usually you're going to get some kind of direction with it, but in general, what these prompts will be asking of you is to share motivation, what originally inspired you to go down this pathway. For me, my master's was in higher education administration and international education, and my inspiration was I was a first-gen student, and I went to a small private liberal arts college, and when I got there, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. And so the student support and the international students in particular ended up telling me how to exist as a student. They told me all the stuff that I had no clue about. And so then I realized, okay, there are people who get to do this as a job. And so that's what I wanted to go into. So my motivation of being a first-gen student who was completely lost actually ended up giving me a good story to tell that explained why I wanted to go into a higher ed master's program. And I ended up getting a GA-ship in the study abroad office, and that kind of set me on my path, and it was perfect. But a lot of it I really think was because I got to tell that story about being completely lost for the first 2 years of undergrad, at least, probably more if we're being honest. It also gives you space to talk about your extracurricular activities and your work experience. So how does that connect to the degree? Thinking about classes and what you've learned from those, and then what you want to do in the future. A lot of what they want to see in a statement of purpose is that you're going to do their program, you're going to be great, you're going to graduate, you're going to get a job, and you're going to look good on the program because you're going to be one of their successful grads. So they want to see that you have potential for success after the degree is even finished. Part of that is also they want you to come back and give them money, right? So they want to see that you're going to have a steady income that you're going to be able to donate to them. So all of those sorts of things, if you can share that in the paper, that's great. So I'm not going to go over all of these. You can pause and read through all of it. It's a lot here. But kind of like the cover letter, you don't want to go over everything. You just want to pick a couple specific things to go into detail on. And they should be things that are chosen really well to speak to the program or to speak to you and your experiences and your goals, to really be able to give you a place to start to unpack things. And when you submit the statement of purpose, they're also going to see your resume, they're going to see your transcript, they're going to see letter of recommendations. So you don't need to have everything in here. You should have all of those things speaking to different capacities that you're bringing in. But you do want it to be specific, and you do want to kind of show that you are committed to learning. So a lot of times if you can show, okay, I didn't know this, but then I found this out and then I was able to apply it here, that shows that you are a learner. You're somebody who's a self-starter. You'll be able to figure things out and you'll be able to get on with whatever is expected, and do well, and you know how to do well. So, like I said, it's a lot about potential, and you're not having to prove that you already know anything, just that you have the capacity to want to be able to know something. So you don't come in like, here, you don't have to have a PhD to get into grad school. The purpose of grad school is to prepare you for that later on. So it's really just about saying, okay, I have a good attitude, I have good past experiences, I am, a moldable block of clay, and this is why, and this is how I'll fit into your program. So here again, you can pause and read through this. This is some example prompts that I pulled from a couple grad programs all over the country. And so you can see here, some of them are really specific, some of them are really general. This first one from Rutgers gives you a good idea of the length usually. So for this class, you're going to be writing a 1-page personal statement, but usually they'll range from about 500 to 1,000 words, which double space can be 2 to 4 pages usually. So it's a decent amount of space, but it's not a whole lot. And once you kind of start trying to unpack your whole life up to this point, 500 words is going to be really tricky to do. But so part of the purpose of this is for them to see that you can be succinct. You can actually tell a full story in such a short space. So a lot of times this takes a lot of revision. So I would encourage you starting to write this as soon as you can, letting it sit for a day or two, come back, delete, edit, whatever you need to do. For me, it always works better just kind of like do a brain dump and then maybe have something that's twice as long as it needs to be, and then come back and delete all the stuff that ends up being rambling or repetitive. So figure out how that works for you. If you look at a grad program and they don't give a specific prompt, you can use any of these for this assignment for the class. But something like with Wisconsin, what are your reasons for graduate study? Describe your current degree goals and your reasons for selecting a field of study. That's a pretty traditional question. So it's asking you to prove to them that you understand the program and then that you have some kind of experience or goal that will fit within it. So you can be pretty flexible in how you respond here. It gives you a decent amount of space to make it fit for you. And so one of the things that you're doing in these statements is building connections. So here there's a study mentioned. Basically, it just shows that as humans, if we feel like we connect with other humans, we're going to like them more. It's pretty obvious. You guys all know that from just living. If you haven't seen it in a formal academic sense like this before, it says, kind of common sense, but it's important to understand that that's still how it works, like in the admissions process. So there's going to be a whole committee that reads your statement of purpose, and if they can see that you have things in common with them, they're going to be more likely to think that you fit in their school, right? They're going to be able to see you in that position a lot easier than if they think you are completely different from them. And so this is why we do the research. So you look at the program and see what classes they offer, or you see who the faculty are and what kind of research they work on. And you can incorporate that into your statement, incorporate into maybe discussing a class that you took as an undergrad, or a work experience that you had, or a volunteering experience that you did, or the goals for the job that you want to have in the future. If you can build those connections, it just, the familiarity aspect of it helps to build that bond that can be difficult to build through words normally. Normally this is stuff that we do through actual human interaction face to face, but we're in less of a face to face world. So this paper basically has to do that for you now. So this is why I really stress choosing a specific program, understanding the program, and then writing once you have that all taken care of. So you build the connections using your stories, right? what I've been saying. And we can see a couple examples here. So these will also be listed on eCampus. I'm not going to read any of these to you, but you could pause it here and read it, or you can go look for the file on eCampus and see. But this one talks about kind of this person's goal for their master's program, the classes that they've taken in the past, the classes they would take in the future, how their experiences trained them for this program and made them somebody who would be able to come into it and do well. And there's a lot of discussion here about the actual target program, so the program they're applying to. This is important because it shows that you are actually looking specifically for this program, this school. It's not a letter that's just going to be blanket sent out to all of them. It's specialized to the specific school that they're applying to here, which part of it is, in manufacturing that relationship or building the connection, you want to make them feel special too, right? They don't want to think that you're just applying to any school and you'll go to, whichever one gives you the best financial aid. Even if that's actually the case, you still want it to seem like it's a specific relationship that you're trying to build with that specific program. A lot of grad programs are really small, right? Some of them will maybe take a dozen students each year. And so fitting into that kind of community is really important. So they want to see that you've already invested something into them before they invest into you. Another example here, this one does a little bit more narrative building, which is nice. It tells the story. It makes it easier for the reader to kind of just slip into it and really gut at all the information that you're sharing. This one also has a really big emphasis on research. If you're going into a research master's program, that's important. If you're not, research might not be as big of a consideration. My master's program, the research was fairly minor, so I didn't really mention research experience. I think I talked about a thesis that I wrote as an undergrad, but it was in passing, and it was like maybe a sentence or two. I wasn't talking about professors that I'd worked with or anything like that. So if you're more like that, your statement of purpose probably won't really look like this one, but if you're coming from more of a STEM background, this might be a good example to follow. So same as with the cover letters, Google statement of purpose example for the program that you want to go into, right? So if you're looking at going into a counseling program, statement of purpose, counseling master's degree, then you can see an example of something hopefully that's been useful for that. If you find examples and you're not able to tell if it's good or bad, you can email it to me and I'll let you know if it's a strong one or a weak one, so you can know whether you should aim for it or away from it. That there's so many examples out there. I just have a couple up here. You can definitely explore a little bit more on your own.